Welcome to the Beyond the Batter's Box podcast with Base by Pros. I'm your host, Nick Kemper. Today is our very first episode. We have a very special guest, Mr. Brent Lillibridge on. He is the owner of this facility and a former big leaguer. Brent, go ahead and tell us about yourself.
Oh, thanks. Well, that special guest when it's the first one, everyone's special at that point, right?
True.
Yeah,
That is true.
My name's Brent. You kind of see in the back. I got to play at the major league level. Honestly excited to kind of get this thing going. I know it's been a pet project of like trying to basically get our story out. I'm excited about where it's going to go with the special guest and talking through a lot of the youth and the professional side of it. And when I think about educating and entertaining and all those things we work so hard in our jobs and we have so much wealth of knowledge, be able to put it out there to the world. I'm really excited to see where that goes and where the response will be. So I'm super fired up.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being on here. Go ahead and tell us about like where you came from. I think you're local here, right?
Yeah. So we are right now in Linwood, Washington. I grew up in Everett, Washington, 10 minutes from here, basically, and born and raised here. Went to University of Washington, stayed close. Luckily, I got that scholarship here. That was very nice to stay around. I always wanted to be a Husky and got a chance to do that. And got to play there for 3 years. Dropped out of college. Called it a successful dropout, right? I always say that with people. It's like they ask me all the time, like, "Hey, like, did you finish your degree?" I was like, "I was a successful dropout." You know, like that's an interesting segue to something, right? So, I mean, with the mindset when I went to University of Washington, like I want to play professional baseball, and that was what I'm there to do. Which when you think about college, you're like it's for education, and for sure, like I was getting good grades and on the way. But if this thing works out, like I'm definitely ready to say yes to the next step stuff. So, I've been part of this community, and even when I was playing, coming back, lived here my whole life. Me and my wife, had houses here. I've been here this whole time. Always got that little lure of, especially this time of year, as we know, like it's cold and usually not nice out. Like
the rain.
Arizona, Florida, like anywhere but here. But we have family and friends here, and just really good core group of people that we love, and just really hard to go away from that kind of culture and people. So. Been here ever since and traveled a bunch in my life, but you can't beat Washington State in general, and especially this area.
For sure. Yeah, I can definitely understand the rain. The rain is not fun for this time of year. It's raining about like every day here in like the Seattle area, so about every day is cloudy with a chance of rain, and it's not like you said, Phoenix or Tampa. So I guess going through, like, for one, you mentioned like successful college dropout. I don't think I've ever heard like that phrase mentioned before, which is funny though because there's a lot of them, right?
Yep.
Like you're about like all like the big CEOs, like almost all of them are that. But I guess like for you, obviously, like you took a different path for like the big leagues. Like when did you know, okay, like I'm really good at this, and like when was it time for you to be like, all right, like it's probably time to put like college on the back burner?
Yeah, man, you always have hopes, right? In my mind from the very beginning, like the idea of like being a Major League Baseball player, I don't know what it was. I think my grandpa, we would listen to Mariners games on the radio, which I'm not that old. We watched it on TV too, but radio's playing, listening to Dave Niehaus and Rick Riz, which full circle moment, being able to meet both those people while I was playing was just like unbelievable. And I just infused of like, I love this game, and very early on, like I was kind of good at it, even though I was a small little dude, like, oh, this game's kind of easy, and I get it, and I understand the situation and stuff. I think you just always have those dreams. I think everyone does, and I truly believe the more I've done this line of work outside of baseball, which we'll get to, is like there's some core to every human being, every kid. There's just those passions. They're like, it's in there, and there's like you can't shake it. And the goal of that is like, how do you maximize, like, or I say like, how do you achieve, like, hey, there's something in me that I really love doing specifically. Like, how do I get to do that, and maybe potentially do that as an adult, right? And I think there's a couple key moments in my baseball development and career where like I was like, oh, like this is potential. And one was my first game. I went to Jackson High School down the street. My first game on varsity as a freshman. Jackson was very good back then. So like me being a freshman, nowadays a little bit different, but like then it was the team's okay. I had to play shortstop, and I faced a draft pick guy that was throwing low 90s, and it was 35 degrees outside, and there was a bunch of scouts there. I'm just like, oh, this is what varsity's like every day. And it was like, and I had really good at bats, hit a couple balls to the wall off them, and it was just like, all of a sudden the scouts were like, who's this little guy? Yeah, and that's how it kind of works, right? You're like all of a sudden they're looking one guy, and you see another guy kind of coming up, and I had good at bats, and all of a sudden the little scout cards got hopped to my dad, and my dad didn't say anything at the beginning, and then we got home, and he like laid them out, right? Almost like poker cards, like laid them all out. I was like, look at this, Boston, like Pirates, like all that stuff. And I was like, what? And I think that was when I was like, oh, like I could do this, right? And another, fast forward to that stuff, went to the draft and like that. I wanted to go to college, and I think honestly, I had so much success my freshman year of college, being in the ranking for freshman of the year. Was like a couple votes away from it. Lost to a guy who hit a bunch of home runs, but we were pretty much even. And I made the USA team. I was like, okay, I'm at this point here playing with these guys that are all going to be, future big leaguers probably. And I was like, I know I play with these guys. I know this is my job. This is what I can do. And I went with that with my freshman year of like getting in there and have success. But when I start really picking off, I was like, yeah, this is something I can really sink my teeth into, and then work my butt off. And I mean, when you get drafted, it's like, okay, there's like that's it. I have a chance. As long as you have a chance, you got a chance to go somewhere, some team. Like, and I think that's where the moment happens. But yeah, I think those two kind of core moments of like, okay, this is it. Like, this is my real chance, and I definitely took advantage of it.
Was there like, because I feel like people always talk about like, it's nice to play a kid's game like as a job, but was there ever a moment where like the game stopped being fun? Or, like, was there like a time where you're like, wow, like this really is kind of a job?
Man, I have to go through the lens of like I've been done for 10 and a half years now, and so we train baseball kids and softball girl. We play baseball and softball trainer. We train them, right? And I'm seeing this generation more stress like over the game, and I look back and I'm like just really thinking I was like I loved it. Like there was not a point where I didn't want to go to practice. I mean, you could talk like maybe there's more distractions, stuff I didn't have back then, right? We didn't have anything.
Social media.
Yeah, social media. No, I didn't know what was going on. I was just, I love this. And I feel like I didn't really experience that moment where I was like, oh, I don't want to go to work until like I was in professional baseball. And I think even then, like minor leagues and most of my big league time, I wanted to play. It was at the end. It was just like, I started having this thing in my heart. I was like, man, I'm not really looking forward to being in the lineup today. And I'm like, oh, shoot, that's a red flag, right? And a guy like me, like, it's not like I can just wake up and, play well. It was like, it was a major process to get the swing right, the body feeling well. And I think that was the moment I was like, dang, I might be turning the corner to that. But before that, like, the baseball player Brent Lillibridge, like, there was never a moment where that guy didn't want to play the game, right? And I think that was, like, realizing like that passion is super important. If I would say like you can be uber talented, and there's guys, I'll be honest, there's guys in the league when I played, even now, like they don't have to do much in here. They can just play. They're just gifted. Like, and they put the work in that needs to happen, but there's not like that crazy passion. Like, I'm really good at this. I get paid for it. Cool. And they're like, the minute that's over, like they're fine. And I was like, dude, I want to play this, right? And I think it's crazy when you think about like when it was like it was very, very into my career where I wasn't ready to grind every day, and I was at that point I was like, okay, that's fine, and I was ready for that next transition stuff, and who knows if I had three-year contracts and if I would have felt that same way. But when you're grinding a little bit in my career, like it's kind of like you're looking in the mirror every day, you're like, is this really what you want to do? And I was paid well in an up and down kind of minor league salary, but in comparison, you're like, man, is this really what I want to put my family through? So.
Fair. Yeah. You mentioned like the grind of it. How long were you in the minor leagues for? And like, when did you get the call? And what was that feeling like?
Yeah. It was a pretty quick. Moved up really quick. So back then, and they don't have a short season anymore in the minor league side of stuff. We're talking about like 20 years ago now. Jeez.
Sorry, Brent.
So I got drafted in 2005. 2005, like you get drafted, and usually college picks, specifically some high school picks too, will go play in short season, which is going to be like two and a half months, June 20th, basically like that until middle of August, late August. They'll play, gosh, maybe 30, 40 games, 50 games. Don't quote me on it, you can Google it, and just kind of get your first step into pro ball, the travel, all that stuff, and then and from that point on, the next 2 years, I moved up 2 level each year. So low A to high A, double A to triple A. The next year, I was knocking the big leagues. So like when you think of that transition, I was a top draft pick. I was in the top 4 rounds. that's a normal kind of cadence when you're doing your job. First rounders might go a little quicker. I mean, they're
Especially now.
Yeah, they're gonna push them forward. But like, I did my job. I had my numbers were really good. I was doing my playing my position as a shortstop, and so I moved up kind of what I say peaking for who I was as a fourth rounder and a shortstop, undersized. And yeah, it was knocking the big leagues really quickly, and it was pretty exciting to think like, oh my gosh, I'm literally like there, and I'm a prospect. I'm going to the futures games. I'm a dude, right?
Yeah.
It was really cool, and obviously that transition of like getting that call up was really special. Like, it was my third year in minor league baseball. Went back to AAA. Knew I was going to be going up at one point. I was the dude. That was gonna the guy was gonna come up and down. Didn't know it was gonna be like 25 times. My first year, that's exaggerated. But it was like definitely at least 12. My wife will attest to that. All the up and downs we did. From Richmond, Virginia to Atlanta, Georgia. That's where I was with the Braves at that point, and got called up in early April, or I said like late April, and got a chance to fly out to New York and play at Shea Stadium the last year I was there. The place was a dump. It was they're done with it. They're just done with it. So they're like, we got the other stadium's right behind it, looking at it, looking nice and starting to be built, and didn't get any hits my first couple games. I actually got sent down before I got my first hit, and I was like, oh crap, like what if, like, honestly, I know I can play, but like what if that was it?
Right.
And I was like 0 for 7. I'm like, and that's it. And I'll never get a hit. Zeros across the board. I don't think I even walked. And I was like, oh my God, what if that's it? And obviously that wasn't it. But that experience is great. Getting a chance to get your name called and wearing that jersey and guaranteeing that you'll always be a Major League Baseball player. When you look back at it, when you're older, you like think how it's cool all the time. You're just like, man, I just want to play now. Every day. I just want to be big league every day. I don't want to go back to the minor leagues. And that's kind of crazy how your heart changes from like, if I just get here, okay, if I just get here, it's just this scaling that just keeps on going. That's kind of almost like unsatiable, right? You can't feed it. And but it was a really cool experience for sure. I wish it would home run my first hit or something, but it took a little while. But I was able to do something. So,
right.
Yeah.
Do you kind of like getting back to what we talked about like earlier with like social media and like the pressures like kids face? Like obviously back then, like when you got up here. Like, you talk about the pressure of, like, you went 0 for 7 or whatever the first, and you thought, like, that was going to be it. Like, nowadays, kids especially, like, I remember when Baker Mayfield, like, was out of Cleveland, and they were like, he's a bust, he's the number 1 pick. And, like, everywhere on social media, it was, like, bust, and they do it with, like, Bryce Young and everybody else that, like, doesn't pan out right away. Like, do you feel like that plays, like, a huge part in, like, how the game is like managed and like also like a player's psyche of like how they like handle themselves and like handle failure?
Man, that's a really good question. Let's just say on the top shelf of it, say the ownership, GMs, all that stuff, like they can go analytical about ideas and projectability, but they're still human, right? Everyone's human, and there's human perception, there's human intake, there's emotions. Like, we are emotional, like we're created emotional, we're emotional beings. So like everything with all the information, right, from influences from from the beat writers to the ESPN to, like I said, fans and all these people, like there's so much noise and so much opinions, right, that it's impossible for humans in general, even great leaders, to not be influenced a little bit, right? And so when you think about that influence, right, and just the energy of it, and you go to the player and they're chewing up that stuff, right? They're listening to it, or not trying to, but knowing it's in there. You can feel it. Like, you can feel
it's everywhere.
Yeah, and you can also feel as a player when you're struggling or you're a guy, all that stuff, and it's like, man, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. For me, like, it wasn't like the next thing for the Pirates when I was drafted, or for the Braves. Like, I was a very good player, but it wasn't like I was coming into at the time like to replace Chipper Jones. I wasn't gonna be the next Chipper Jones, right? I was gonna be the next, like, shortstop guy. I was going to be a really good, solid baseball player. And so my expectation was a little bit more of just like, I just want to have a job, right? But for these guys that are in those situations, like, you say you don't envy it, but at the same time, like, also it's a privilege, right? That pressure, that opportunity is a privilege. And I think when those guys obtain that and realize, like, first of all, no one figures it out right away. Like, no matter what, like, success early is like like it happens, and it can be call like the rookie let's go, it's like sophomore slump. Like why does it exist? It's because there's adjustments, and there's just like you got to figure it out, and people are gonna adjust to you, and you have to get better, and there's just gonna be these lulls of any career you're gonna have where like you're not gonna be good the whole time. And I think when you have that, you're like, hey, that pressure, like, and just understand like my time's gonna be there. And I think a lot of these guys have had success, which those guys are like, I wrote them off as a fan, like those guys can't play, even with like, but then you see the system trusted or the right coaching that just believes in them. And I think a lot of it comes down to that backdoor side of stuff where like coaches are like, there was somebody. If you talk to probably Baker, you talk to like, and same with Young, like I bet there was somebody in their corner for the first time truly say, hey, we know it's gonna be hard, but you're our guy, and here's how I'm gonna help you. I think there's an aha moment where I was like, okay, because every athlete, every business owner, and every employee just wants at one point to be like told they're okay, right? I mean that's what it is. Like you're okay. I trust your talents. You're here for you. You're not running away from you, right? Because you haven't put out the whatever. And I think that's really when you see that stuff, like the expectations. Like, well, like if you don't want the expectation, go do something that's not going to give you an expectation, right? But I don't think you're going to be happy. You're not going to be living, right? You're definitely not going to be doing any cool thing in your life, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
You gotta face pressure for sure.
Yep.
I also think too, like the analytics and like I'm a big fan personally, but like kind of like what you talked about, like everybody's human. So like there's always gonna be moments where like you have to go with your gut, and like especially now with like technology taking over and there's like stats with everything. I remember hearing, I think it was Johnny Gomes talk about how at one point, like in the back half of his career, he basically had numbers on like starting pitchers and relief pitchers for every single possible count and the likelihood they were going to throw like a certain pitch based on like the temperature of the day. And basically there was one pitcher that it was like 100% if it was in a 3-2 count, he was gonna, like with like a 75-degree day out there, he was going to throw a splitter, and like 100% of the time it was a ball. So like he went up there, he said one time that situation actually happened, and it became like just auto take, and sure enough it was a ball. And like that type of stuff right there, I think is like what a lot of people don't understand, like how hard the game is. And there's also like the same thing goes like basketball and football. Like I remember Matt Painter, the Purdue basketball coach last year, went in-depth detail with a reporter talking about like schematics of like just like one play, and it was like not English, like in terms of like what he was speaking. And I think everybody in the room was just like, what's going on? And like I think that's like the part of the game, especially like when you get to that high level, like people really miss of like how hard it is and like how tough that is mentally. Because like at the end of the day, like you have to go study, like that's like school basically, especially learning all like the terminology and like understanding like how much analytics are out there, and knowing like each situation has like its own, like I guess like for lack of a better phrase, like moment that could happen, or like situation that could happen, and like you have to prepare for that. And like as a result, like that becomes more than a full-time job, right? Because like you have a full-time job, you're going from 9 to 5. Like these guys are going from 8 to 12 basically as soon as they wake up and as soon as they go to bed. So like kind of talk about like, did that ever wear you down ever, like that whole process? Like obviously like you were kind of like in the game right as like analytics was really taking over, but like did that like really wear on you? Like what was your like take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go to the coaches side first because that's the biggest part. Is like as coaches, which I have one of my close friends, business owner Steven Souza Jr. is with the he's the San Diego Padres head hitting coach, right? The analytics are boggling, right? The things we're going through, we're looking through, like he's looking through stuff. He kind of walks me through some of the stuff, obviously not sharing because it's like it's his job, but just talking through like all the complexities of like the right windows and the zones and like angles, and this is going to match up with this guy versus that. Like you have to be able to decipher and be able to communicate to an athlete simply, because in the end when you're in the box, when you're on the court, like it isn't numbers, right? It's literally just you have to be able to react to the situation with good information behind it, right? I think the same with football. I didn't play football. I'm a huge fan of football. I love it. They make it super complex, but in the end, don't knock me wrong, it's one-on-one.
Yeah.
I beat this guy, somehow run my route, I'm going to catch the ball. Right. I don't care what the scheme is or whatever it is. If I beat this, do this, or I know how to find space in a zone and sit in it, like I'm going to be able to get a reception or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And it's same with baseball. It's like you can talk all you want, see ball, hit ball. basketball's
compete.
like same. I'm 1-on-1 with you. Here's our situation. Based off this, like really, in the end, I have to beat this guy in front of me and then react to the next thing. And I think taking the information, I think the most powerful tool of this generation of like in sports, because it is, they're tracking where they are on the court. I mean, they're taking data, especially with AI. Like they're grabbing so much data now. Is as a player, we'll go with player first, is be able to be open to that stuff of like, hey, analytics of like, hey, this situation, this isn't your best, let's go to baseball. Like, hey, you really do struggle with the outside quadrant of like, hey, up and out is just not your pitch, right? So if we struggle a lot, either we're going to work on it mechanically to be in a better position, like you dump your barrel, whatever, working on more of a steep angle, or we're just going to stay out of it, right? And we're going to focus on our strengths and just lay out it. And based off this pitcher, you fit well because their misses are so big out of there that they're never going to be a strike. And I think then you take that and go, okay, here's my approach. But that's the part of like I think when you look at anything like I'm a small business owner, but there's a lot of complexity. What we're doing is like all the information. Like, all right, there's a lot. Like, what's our next step or what's the next focus, right? Instead of like I got to think of balancing 15 different things. It's like, okay, what's my one step after another, grand scheme of thing, goal. But in the end, like, okay, today this is what we're working on, because I think like when you overcomplicate it, over complexity, things sounded complex. In the end, great teachers, great communicators make something that complex sound so easy to digest. And we always say, like, translate it to an 8-year-old, right? If you can translate what this is to an 8-year-old, then you're really good, like really good. Now, like, there's more to that part of it, but in the end, like, that's what you have to be able to do. If you don't, you really don't know what you're talking about. I tell you, like, I met with a lot of really smart people, understand stuff, but they can't I was like, I think you know the information, but I don't think you actually know what you're saying. Right. And there's other people that they're super simple, but but they're they don't have ego, where they're like,
easy to talk to.
I know all this stuff. I don't have to prove to you I know all this stuff. I'm just gonna tell you what you need to know, right? Or it's like, hey, change your thing, make here, move to this spot, or dive to other sports. But I think it is crazy. When I came into this, when I was in the league and stuff like that, we didn't have exit velocity track, right? It was really just mile per hour gun on the at the field, right? They wasn't tracking any of the craziest things. They might have hot zone stuff they tracked a little bit. Our scouting reports are really just he's got a plus slider with a little bit of run, look for the ball up in the zone. But even then, we didn't get to like, hey, this quadrant, right? I got to talk with a head hitting coach, Robert Scoia, for the Dodgers, who's been there for 5-6 years now. Great communicator, very analytical, really smart at the swing. But he goes, you know where to look. Like, hey, against this guy, this is the window. They're not going to tell you, but this is the window you want to look for, and it's going to give you the best chance for his plus fastball and his secondary pitch if it's like a strike. If you look outside that window, like if you're like block it out, like it's no shot. Like you have no shot to hit the baseball based off your swing path X, Y. It's like, man, I would keep it a lot more simple than, hey, I got to look for a ball up. It's like, no, look for this angle. And I'm like, dude, now the guy has a nasty slider. I lay off it because I'm looking earlier, more inside or something like that, and allows me to hit the baseball to what my strengths are, right? So it's all this like balance of like analytical side of it. But I think I listen to a lot in the commentators and stuff like that. They're very smart people. They're savants in some versions of it, of like how good they are, what they do, how they communicate. It's like, okay, can they, in the end, without ego, be able to say, okay, simplicity, this is what we're trying to do, right? And then, dude, that's the best coach in the world for sure.
That to me is like another thing that makes baseball like super hard, because like you have to make it simple. I mean, I remember like guys always say like, oh, we got a guy throwing 100. Like that's like the everyday guy now. Like it's like guys throwing 104, and like if you even try to basically sit slider fastball, like you have to sit one pitch, because like it's almost like you have to like just like take one pitch, otherwise like you're gonna get blown up. And like that, I think is something that like is super challenging. Is like facing a guy who throws 104, and oh, by the way, he's got a 92-mile-an-hour slider, which 10 years ago that was a fastball, and now it's moving 12 inches and going up and down and left and right, and like that like makes it super hard to like, especially kind of like what we talked about earlier, like with the mental side of it. Like you have to make it super simple. Even like these players aren't 8-year-olds, right? So like even then, like you have to make it super simple for them, because they got 1,000 things going through their head. Yeah. And like as a result, like it just becomes like super challenging. So like the easier it is, like almost like the better.
Yeah. So I'll give you a little hot take on this. One, miles per hour has not increased that much because of where they're collecting the data from, out of the hand, right? So, like, I'll just tell you, like, some of the fields we played at, we knew the juice guns because the radar gun was closer. That was it. Like, the ones that were, like Oakland Athletics, like, the backstop's, like, 40 feet, 50 feet. Like, you, like, pop up, you're out, right? Like, it was slower guns, right?
Yeah,
so,
right,
like, yes. But what's happened is
I know what you're saying.
the guys, like, there's more of the guys doing it, right? Versus, 95 then was, like, I faced 100 miles per hour, like, which then was probably 304. But it was fun, just interesting on the velocity uptake. There's more in that bunch now because they're just maximizing their bodies. They're stronger.
Way bigger.
Yeah, way bigger. Right? The guys with there's like, I'm just throwing baseball. It's just not a thing anymore, right? They're super athletes. Yeah. But what is interesting is they are getting smarter. They're understanding how their pitch, like, okay, this is my fastball. Like, what's going to be the best for tunneling, to get the best whiff rate, all that stuff. And that's the stuff that was kind of like when I was playing, or even older guys were like, man, he's just invisible. Like, you just can't see it. Like, I can't see his secondary pitch. It's not even that good. But then you're looking, and then you put him analytically, you're like, oh, that's a plus pitch because the way his fastball works and runs, and he's able to tunnel that off this pitch. Like, the decision making is too late. So that's why I get so many swings and misses in that slider or that changeup, because it just stays in that same window for so much longer than the average player, right? Or the average pitcher. Where guys are like big fastball, curveball, and they're like all over the place. Then you're like, well, that's easy to pick up, right? Yeah. And we just didn't have a term for it, right? We didn't have like, oh, it's a good tunnel, or we were just like, yeah, we're just like, I can't see him, right? But the reality is, like, it was just really good, and they didn't know what they were doing. They just knew how to repeat it, and obviously the stuff with the spins gotten tighter with the amazing things that great teachers, and even like we look at some of the other companies out there, like they just know, hey, I can fix this little grip strength, and all of a sudden you see it instant result on a in Rapsodo or TrackMan, all that stuff, and it gives you feedback and say, oh, that really did move, and now let's go test it in the real world and get some results, and see guys like, man, now they become really good when they throw strikes and do that stuff. It's super interesting. But when I think about part of it, like, to the hopes of these, like we talk about hitters, it's like, yeah, the game's always been hard to hit. Like, that's why baseball is so crazy.
Right.
But I think also hitters have learned, you see these like waves in hitting and pitching where pitchers start, they'll change a tendency. I think it's usually, they all kind of follow the same thing, where it's like, in my first couple of years in the big leagues, everyone was much more sinker slider, right? Sliders, sinkers. So you're looking like one ball going this way, one ball going that way. And that makes sense. Like, you're running this way, right? And I liked a lot of depth. So we worked a lot on things that were down. We worked a lot more on underneath the baseball, right? Because things are diving. Let's get underneath. And all of a sudden, then it was flat fastball with a curveball, right? Or horizontal movement with a cutter. And it's like, okay, that changes. We can't go underneath. We have to think more on top. So you see the game's always adjusting and flowing and trying to figure out how to basically get the opponent to suck. and the other opponent's just trying not to suck.
Right.
But it's really fun to see those, like, the chess game of, like, pitchers and hitters trying to figure stuff out. And here's the hard thing for hitting, which is why this game is the hardest game in the world, is we have to be reacting to what the opponent's showing up. We don't know what he's going to do until it happens. Or we see it, it's like, oh, this is the new feature. And we're like, you have to adjust. And we have to quickly adjust versus, they've been doing the same thing over and over again. It's like, I don't know. He just has developed a new curveball or something like that. He's working as his number 2. And you're like, well, that's something I've never seen before. And now I have to, like, work a game plan off it because now he has a new presentation, right? Something like an offense versus defense. You're like, offense comes out with something on a football side. The defense is either going to stick with what they're doing or they're going to adjust.
Or make an adjustment, right? Do you have, I guess, like, transitioning over to the business side, like, do you take it like that in depth with kids, or like how do you adjust here, like at Base by Pros? Like, how do you like if a kid comes in, has a lesson, like what do you walk them through? How do you basically develop that from like 9 years old all the way up to he's 18?
Yeah, so we started this about 10 years ago. Main goal of that part of it was I got taught so well on the hitting side with video comparison, like in technology, it was tough because it was like we had to do CDs and like
floppy disk.
Like, it was a floppy disk, which it probably could have been, but we had also like cameras that we had to like go slow motion, like stop still type stuff to go through, or we had to load it into a computer and like adjust it, right? But so we took more time to do it, but now like when I started this, iPad was pretty, iPhone was working so that we could actually record something pretty quickly, look at it right away. No one was doing that like 10 years ago. Like there was very few, and I was like, I kind of want to show these kids how to mirror something, not like perfect, I want you to swing like this guy, but like here's some absolutes based off, we look at all these hitters, like barrel angle, lane and foot strike, all that stuff, and I think like I realized as I started with like one client, and we obviously work with thousands of kids now, like is like the teaching for athletes in general are very spatial, right? Some kids are super analytical, so like angles and stuff that makes them. But when a body's moving, it's like that. It's much more about space than anything else. So when they can like mirror themselves and look at something and see where they're at, like that's space and proprioception than it is anything else. And once they can match or say, oh, that felt like this, I realized that even a 9-year-old, right? Doesn't need a bunch of video analysis stuff, but like it's super helpful of like looking yourself in the mirror basically and say, hey, you feel like you're doing this, like, yeah, I'm doing it. Like, no, you're not, right? And then obviously slow motion has been incredibly helpful because it's gotten better and better where you can really see how someone's going through it, and to a point where we're doing so much slow motion sometimes, like the kids are not swinging the way they just be athletic, but just seeing like that process of like I learned how to teach through like just success of kids getting it, knowing how their body feels, which is one part of it, right? Mechanics and all that stuff, and just the tendencies of like what makes a kid learn, a boy or a girl, based off the personalities and all that stuff, using data when need to be. But at the youth side of stuff, amateur, before we get into like the high level, potential, guys like me that are going to go play college baseball and stuff, like those fundamental stuff like that, the kids really understand when they see it. And then you just, the athleticism's already DNA in there. Like you can't like pretend like there's not kids that are just gifted, right, physically. Sure. And that's there's kids gifted in everything. Like it's, I'm not going to be gifted in, art. Like it's not going to happen. Same. I don't care as much as I try and worked hard at it, I would be as good as my daughter at it. Like because she's really good at it. And I think it's really interesting how, as teachers, that's what we are. Like we're coaches, but really we're teaching at the same time. Not as credible as real teachers, but in the end, we're teaching a sport is like just knowing the personality, using the tools we have available, but also knowing when to scale back from the tools, knowing when to step on the gas on the tools to really make adjustments. And seeing this generation that has so much information, watch YouTube videos, their parents recording every single game changer, right? Where I was like, oh, I know my stats from I was 8. I'm like, dude, I can't even pull up, I can't pull up my stats from high school, right? I finally saw them I saw them as my stats in high school after a award thing, and I was like, oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, right. Video game numbers.
Yeah, no idea. So I was like, oh, that was pretty good. But I was like, I just played baseball, and like I knew I was hitting balls where I should be and getting looks, right? So I think that part, like when we look at as coaches and when I built this, was like, okay, how do we work with every kid that wants to play the game on both baseball and softball, and meet them where they're at and be able to improve them as much as they can, so that when they smile, get to play on their team, have success, versus the kids that have real gifting in this and have talent and are going to play at the next level, or kids that are like and they made it. And it's super cool, but they all are basis of what we try to do is like analyze, don't be too crazy on the analytics side of stuff, but that's also more as an owner. My identity was like a middle ground of simplicity. Like I was complex, but in the right place, versus like if I was way more analytical on one side, which is like there's some guys out there, right? That's great.
For sure.
You're gonna be identity. A business is gonna flow a little bit to the ethos of like how the owner, or I think of like a church too, like the pastor's identity, who he is. It's gonna have some it's gonna have some vibes of how he works or she works more than like an idea, because they're going to be running the show and they're going to kind of lead a certain way, which we work together. Like you understand how I kind of operate already, right?
Right. So I guess talk to me more about like what how your day-to-day has changed now as like a business owner from like the big leagues. Like you are insanely busy on both sides. Like I mean like trying to get a hold of you and Steven is like at any hour of the day is super hard, just because you guys have 1,000 things on your plate. And like talk to me about like the difficulties of that and like how you go about managing all of that, and like how you transition from big leaguer to entrepreneur.
You don't realize at times, and I think this is more of just being, you're younger and every life stage, right? When I was first coming up, it was just about me, right? I had my wife and we were high school sweethearts, so she was always my world. So like I had one other person to really take care of, and a dog, right? So like I could focus on me, the simplicity of it, right? Just the simplicity of like, but you don't know different. It's not even like a knock on, oh, you wait till you have kids or wait till you like have real job, right? That kind of stuff, right? It's just the reality of like you don't know where you're at. Everything's hard in your space. I'm never gonna knock it because I thought my life was really hard, right? And I think when you look at just the like what I've learned from it is there was simplicity of like, okay, I have one job for 7 months, right? I'm gonna be showing up at this time, do my work, play a game. It's gonna stress me out. It's gonna be hard. But the simplicity, like I'm here for 7 months in one thing, and there's nothing else on my plate. Not a wedding I get to go to, right? There's no phone calls, which you'll test. Like we get knocked a lot. I think most in the professional aspects, like really bad at communication. And I didn't understand. I didn't respond when it was back then, and we all agree when we sit around a table and joke about it, like in our brain we're like, I can't. I just need. I'm focused on this, but at the same time, there's a value to that like laserness, right? And this focus of like, which I wish I could get out of sometimes, which is why I'll be honest, like guys go to other things to kind of relax themselves,
decompress.
When you're in it, right? When you're in it, like you're like, dude, this is what I'm here for. Like the other noise, sadly, sometimes relationships, all that stuff, it's got to be on the back burner until I'm able to be present,
right?
And so when I transition into, from baseball to simplicity and one kid, and now I have 3 kids and been doing this job for 10 plus years and like increasing employees and all that stuff, like it's not complex. It's still managing and serving and trying to be available to people. As you can test, like sometimes I have other stuff on and I get back to you or other people, like, but it's actually, it ends up being like the lock-in focus towards something, right? I need this to work on, because if I manage my time and I'm too far like general
dispersed,
dispersed, which general learning lots of stuff and being available for stuff, I need that freedom. But it's like, man, if I don't give in charge of making sure like this business keeps going, right? If I'm not focused on that one thing, I know in my mind, maybe I haven't shared with everybody, but like I know this thing is the most important thing for the long-term success. Like we get in ruts of like we're kind of in the trenches for a little while and then we come out of it, and it's a really big battle. I think that's the hardest thing as a leader, and I think all true people, when they talk about they have any responsibility for other people, not just their kids or family, but like employees and all that stuff,
right?
Is we suck at it. Like leader, I've never for a moment said I was like, hey, I'm a pretty good boss. Like I honestly, like I wake up every morning, I was like, just don't screw it up today. No, like don't have that conversation. Like what are you gonna do like to mess up like it's just this consistent wake up of like the fear of what you call like being like found out, right? Like the imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
But then I've just learned, I'm 42 now, of the reality of one, like I have been able to, like by doing the right thing, being honest with people, honestly, in the end, like I care more, and you say like I care more about like our core of the business, and I know because I don't get to have the one-on-one with all of our clients every day that I used to, which I used to know everybody, and now it is weird to transition from that of like knowing every kid's swing, every kid's relationship, the parents, all their stories, and knowing all my instructors have those special times now. Same with you in the weight room, the kids is like okay, I need to pour my energy and time to make sure my staff, my leaders, it's like that downward movement towards like leadership or like giving responsibilities to people. But it's interesting. It's like I haven't figured out. I don't think I ever will. But I think if I'm honest, if we're always just honest with each other and as leaders and stuff like that things are hard, and managing people is incredibly hard.
For sure.
Much harder than working on a swing or doing the P&L and that kind of stuff on a business side. Like that, the numbers are easier. Not for me, but like it's just the simplicity of like. But I think I'm meant for the job. Like I know this is what I'm supposed to do, and it gets me excited. It also just I would say it wears me out that I can't be more to everybody. But at the same time, like that's just operating guilt, and I'm not going to operate in guilt. We're human, and I'm just excited that I have actually the pressure of this job because I don't know what I'd do if I was just having to show up again and just do a job. Like, I don't know if I could handle it. Wait, I just got to show up and do this thing, walk away. Like, that's something I don't want to really. And I think when we talk about like my employees and stuff like that, specifically, like, I want ownership. I want the ability, like, hey, here's a project, or what are you passionate about? Because one, it's probably going to generate us revenue if you like it and you're good at it.
Right.
But two, like, you have something you can like, oh man, this is on me. There's not like, not saying like you're behind you have a team, but you're
Nobody's
like,
looking over your
if I
shoulder.
don't do this, like, it's not going to go. Right. And I think that's hugely valuable for any business. And I think I've done a lot of research on that of like high level companies where there is so much of the employee or even the partners of like accountability and also like challenge, like, hey, you need to create in the system, right? You're not here just to check boxes. That in the end, sometimes, like, you know, when we talk about technology, you're going to replace, right? As teacher service, I don't think that's ever going to happen, but like for most of the other industries, like you better have creativity,
Right. Yeah.
Because some of the other stuff's going to be like, we don't need you for
Obsolete.
that, right? Yeah.
I think you kind of touched on a little bit of like being able to focus and like cut out the noise. I think that's super undervalued, especially like today with like ADHD and attention spans like basically lowering. And I think being able to focus on one thing when you know like you said, like you, Steve, and Aaron, like you guys all have 1,000 things to worry about. Like all you guys have multiple jobs. You guys all have kids. Like along with managing a business, like all that stuff is like super time consuming, and like being able to focus on one at a time is probably honestly more productive, just because like you guys can knock out like one thing after another without having to like kind of like you talked about, like spread all your time thin and then like focus 10 minutes here and 10 minutes there and 10 minutes there. Like it's probably honestly like better that you do it that way, like just because like honestly probably can get more stuff done that way.
All at the same time, when you see things if you do something well, it's going to expand, right? If you have a good, say like a good mindset towards it, all that stuff, like it's going to grow. One, if you like for a business, like the main thing we do here at Basic Pros is like, we want a kid to walk in or a family to walk in and just feel safe. Like that's it. Like we talk about this in our employee meetings. Like we want them to be loved. We want them to feel safe. Like all the other stuff is going to work out, right? But if they feel bullied, salesy, like push towards something, you got to do this, like just feed them stuff, and then the fear of like missing out or fear of like, oh, my kid's got to do this, like I never want that to be part of my business. And I think as I'm a consumer in other spaces, like when I do feel like it's like, oh, they're not really pushing it, but they know what I need, like I feel really good versus almost like ew, like I was like, ew, I did it and I guess I'm okay with it, but that was gross, right? And I think with that part of like when I'm trying to grow something like that, I have to like instantly say, okay, I'm not gonna be able to do that stuff. I can't do everything, right? I can't always be a technician. Can't always be the creative. I can't do in the finances. Like I quickly, whenever we think through, I was okay, who can do that job that I need to be done, based off their talents, based off their honestly giftings, right? What they get fired up about, and I've learned that quickly when I ask questions like, what is really gets you excited? So people, I swear, like they love entering data, and they love spreadsheets and like the organization. I die. I literally, my eyes roll. We send stuff. I look over it. I'm like, oh. I'm glad I have it. It's a reference point, but like, no, I just can't. It's not me.
Right.
But I also identify who I am and like what I can do really well. And then when it's put together with that, like execution, all that stuff, is like, dude, now we're a connected group that is really doing things together, because we're not supposed to do it by ourselves. To really grow something, because if we're all exactly like me, stuff wouldn't get done, right? This wouldn't get done, right? Honestly, if it was run by, I don't have the capacity, or like I don't know, I couldn't produce it. Like we need people, right,
sure,
that are passionate and know what they're talking about, or listening like to editing, like okay, know what we're doing,
right.
So I get excited about stuff, but yeah, I mean it's interesting with just how we go through this stuff, like what we can learn from it, and I'm very excited about obviously the future of this for sure.
What is the future? Like, we have 2 facilities currently. We've been around for 10 years. So like, what does the future look like from here on out?
I like to, one of our first mottos or kind of phrases was like dream big, right? My former partner, Mitch Canham, I love him. He's the Oregon State head coach. He's been doing amazing things. Great leader, great coach. It's just about like pushing ourselves to the next level, right? And I absorbed that, and I believe in that stuff, like dreaming to be a Major League Baseball player, right? But also parts of it sometimes is like there's moments in our growth and stuff like that where it's like we just want to get really, really good at what we are right now, right? And I think everyone will agree if you work for a company or where like there's some hot mess behind the scenes. There always will be. I will always attest like we don't have things figured out. So like number one thing is like we want the experience for the families, the communication, all that stuff to get better and better. We're really excited, obviously, for our base performance and what your involvement, why we brought you here, like to really create the holisticness. We've had our mindset towards when we talk about like our skills, like we have at our front we have mindsets, character, skills, and strength. Like we've had the three of them locked in. Strength has been one of the things we've just been always like, right? And so we invested in the weight room at both locations. We invested in people because in the end, like I believe, like for a business like this to claim holistically, well, there's body, mind, and soul, right? So if body's not taken care of, when I'm talking about body, I'm talking about like the real body versus like a skill. And kids aren't learning to be super comfortable in the weight room, which is long term. That's like forever. Like what I learned of how to move my body and how to work out my body and stuff like that. Like I will never forget that. Therefore, I'd probably be healthy for the rest of my life, right? Because I know when I'm like, I should move better than that. Or I just want to feel strong again, right? Once you taste that, like you might go seasons, or I lost like a lot of weight after I stopped playing, and people would probably wish that was their case, but like I was just filling out my body as best I can, but like I missed it. I was like, okay, so when we look at that side of just being really good and getting better at what we do, I mean, and for the future, honestly, opportunities are going to rise. We have goals in place of expanding. Expansion always seems great, but I've also honestly at the same time thought about like expanding in physical locations, expanding in amount of kids is great, but it's just in the end expanding influence, right?
Yep.
This is expanding influence.
Right.
That's a goal. Like that's we want our message out. We want to know people like where we are, but more importantly, just educating and learning our world. The other part is just like allowing more and more of our knowledge and our understanding and stuff like that out to the public, and more people coming in here to have those experiences mean more to me than us actually expanding, because there's always more room for us to grow in capacity and all that stuff. But like I get excited, and I don't know what the future holds for what we are 5 years. We have the 5-year goal, 10-year goal, and stuff. Like when we did this 10 years ago, I've hit them, which is really cool.
Yeah,
like,
that is awesome.
I'm like I've hit these goals. What are the next ones? All that stuff. But honestly, we want this location, Linwood. We want our place in Mount Vernon. We want the community around that. The number one thing I care about when I walk away from this, or I retire again, I don't know, right? Which is basically I just want that. Hey, like the baseball and softball community, the world invested in what sport we're really good at. That's what we know. It grew. More kids participated. More kids, families have great experiences from it, and now that next generation, they're like, I didn't have a bad experience. It was hard, but the relation between my mom and dad or the coaches, like it was such a good experience. Like I can't wait to either give back, right, or when my kids are like, I can't wait to be a part of it, right. Versus like, I don't want anything to do with it because I had this X, Y, and Z issue, this bad coach, bad team I played for. I was like, that's what I really hope in the end is like we look back and like, man, we really made a dent in this and grew the game.
Yeah, I think that's really noble of you too. Like I think a lot of people kind of get into it for like just the money, and then like the fact that like you're doing it for like the community as a whole, and like wanting to stick around kind of where you grew up and like give back to that same area that like raised you, for lack of a better phrase, I think is really inspiring to an extent. Like I think that's really good. Like as like a world, like obviously like now like we're in like a very like challenging time in terms of just like there's a lot of hostility out there, and like being able to give back to your community and like the people that like gave that much to you is really, really great.
I mean, don't get me wrong, we have to pay the bills, right? That sure. Like right. I didn't.
Yeah.
Google, I always say to kids like Google me. Like I didn't make that much money, right? In reference, in my 20s, heck yeah, killed it, right? But in the end, like we allowing us to do our business well, right, allows me to bring more better employees, allow them to pay good salaries, makes this into a career versus like a stepping stone, right? But with that being said, like if you do things right and your focus is actually about people, like I just know that like when that experience is good things will come from it, right? You can't focus on this is our number. I was like, well, if we're just always worried about the number, but we're not worried about the experience, I think I just go back to like when a person walks in the door, or how are employees feeling right now personally? Are they filled up? All that stuff that I failed at miserably, but like that part of like getting excited, like that's gonna spread like wildfire, and then in the end, it's gonna bring more people into the door, which will bring more revenue. And I feel like that just organically takes care of itself, and so then it goes back from we're talking about analytics, like there's analyzing our attendance, and there's so much data out there, but
everything,
right? But in the end, it's like, well, did everyone have a really good day today, right? Yeah. And did my employees, my staff, my instructors feel like they are being educated and they're getting better and they're not just repeating the same stuff over and over again? Are they inspired? Are we creating good opportunities that they get fired up and they love doing this? It's hard work, but they love doing it, and they would never choose another job because this is fulfilling for them. Awesome. And that always works out.
Awesome. Yeah. All right, so kind of like wrapping up here, like give me your most like crazy, outlandish, like funny story from like playing.
Yeah. There's lots, I'll be honest, but I think the fairness of 20-year-olds being dudes and all that stuff, I'll keep it to one specific thing. University of Washington, I got the honor and joy of playing with Tim Lincecum. I'm not going to bury him or like that. He was honestly a great teammate. We played summer ball together, grew up in the same kind of area like that. I loved him. I was so proud of what he did in his career and stuff. We were just being dudes and thought it was smart out of one of the apartments. Like, hey, we're in the second story window. You think we could jump out and make it? And this is I think we're talking about, like, this is before other guys came out, the movie, where it's like, we're aiming for the bushes, right? And when he jumped out, and then I had to jump out. So it was like, you did it. And I was like thinking back, now I'm like, what the heck? But like, when you're athletic, I guess, and young, like, just like, hey, I'll just give it a try.
Invincible.
And there's plenty but I always think that, and there's moments like that where it's like, a guy specifically which I respected and loved watching him play, like realizing we're also just playing a game and having fun as kids and just kicking, just doing stuff when we're bored, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Then like that's also something too, like back to what we talked about with social media, like back then, like you'd have never heard about it, but now like there's a camera everywhere. Like it makes it
Everywhere.
hard, and like you would probably get in trouble for it somewhere.
I tell my kids, honestly, like for my kids specifically, I was like, hey, like you can get away with stuff, just don't be caught in camera.
Right, literally.
Granted, I'm a good parent, but I was like,
but
so you can get caught. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, don't be dumb. It's never going away.
Yep.
It's crazy. I would not envy. I loved my generation of being able to just be normal and not have judgment and stuff like that. And we were good kids. Like, but like anything could be taken out of. So it's, we can go down that rabbit hole. But
yeah, for sure.
So jumping out a window, I survived. So
that's crazy. Did you get like hurt at all or no?
That's fine.
Invincible.
Who knows? He might have skipped a weight class for one day because he rolled his ankle or something. Who knows? But I was fine. Right.
Okay. All right. And then second question here, doesn't have to be baseball players, but top 3 athletes of all time.
So I think about this all the time, and there's such a challenge of like what makes a really good athlete, right? And I'm like because I'm kind of strong-headed with this stuff like that. I think baseball players in general across all sports can do everything.
Yep.
Either okay basketball players, okay football players, great baseball players, and so I think like to be able to run, throw, hit, all that stuff. There were some freak athletes. I think on one side, like just physically athletic. I think Bryce Harper is probably one of the most athletic human beings. And I've seen stuff, and my friends, Steven Souza, like just the things he could do with his body, and just the body alone, and what he can do with the baseball is crazy. When I think of basketball and stuff, obviously you have the greats and stuff, but I think when I got to watch Kevin Durant when he was younger, the way he moved, I was close court size in Portland. We didn't have our Sonics back then. He left. He was on the Sonics, by the way, and then they left. They went to OKC. I got to watch him, and the way he moved, that's, what is he, 6'8", 6'9"? I think
he's 6'11", isn't he? Dude, he's got a wingspan of like 7'5", though.
In my mind, I was like, I can play college basketball.
Right.
I was like, I'm an athlete. I did okay in high school basketball, and University of Washington had like Nate Robinson and Brandon Roy, which were like really good basketball
NBA
players.
players.
But then I looked at him and was like, okay, dude, like no. But when I saw that, I was like, what? The
Yeah.
way he moved and created space, like I was like, that's a different. And obviously he's an elite scorer, and,
Right.
you know, got better defensively and all that stuff. But that was number 2. Number 3, I mean, I go to football and I think about like freak athletes. Like you can't not beat like. I got to watch a little bit as young age. Like Bo Jackson was just stupid, right?
For sure.
And then he crossed over to baseball, which gives me the checkbox. I think he'll do everything really well. And what he did for his career and stuff like that, like that was different. The body, you have Deion Sanders that crossed over too, which he's a great athlete. But like Bo was just something. Him and King Griffey Jr. were the most like wanted posters in my generation, and just freaks. And you would stop and watch him play type stuff. And I cannot imagine having to face, you know, being a baseball player and having Bo Jackson on the field back then when he's coming at you from first base to second base to take you out across shortstop. Like just thinking of that, like he hits people for a living, right? He's gonna run over guys, and now he's gonna come after my 5'10" frame. I was like, screw that. So I think about that when I think of like crazy athletes. Like it's hard to not think of like Bo Jackson in that situation. So I had to throw Bryce in there because I think athletically in this world now, and then I love Durant just because he was my old Supersonic, last year's Supersonics,
For sure.
last draft picks, I think. So there's my 3.
So no MJ and no LeBron.
They're great. I think that's
Right.
an easy checkbox. Right?
Yep.
I just also I mean MJ did play baseball for a half second, but I just think about some little outlier type stuff like guys. Also big fan when I was like, dude, I want to watch these guys play. And Jordan beat the Sonics, so like I get frustrated. He came back and beat the Sonics, right? He came back from baseball, beat the Sonics. Like whatever, dude. Like stay there one more year and let us have a championship ring, right?
Right.
The 70s. So
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, that's gonna wrap up for today. Thank you very much for coming on. I look forward to growing this whole thing, and for the viewers out there watching, thank you for tuning in. There'll be a lot more coming out. So, catch you next time on Beyond the Batter's Box.